let's start with a somber moment and then get into all of the fun stuff. Over the last few days, there was a shooting, a school shooting in Florida, and there's been a lot of statistics that have come out. There's been a lot of people that have been blamed for it. There's been miscommunication between the FBI and the Florida office. There's been talk of gun laws. There's been talk of mental health support. There's been talk that it's the 28th shooting or 18th shooting, the mass shooting this year. What's your take? And is there anything that America can learn from this, or is this just going to be another shooting that's, for lack of a better term, swept under the rug? I mean, it's one that Australia heard about. We don't hear about everyone. We just hear about the statistics that come out, and then the one that's kind of big and an imposing event. So what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I think, first of all, the biggest blame has to go to the FBI, where they had information that this kid had mental issues, that he was violent, that the police had been called to his house 39 different times for problems over the last few years. And somebody, he made a post on the internet that said, "I'm going to be the next school shooter," so that somebody saw this, emailed the FBI, didn't hear back from them. Then he called the FBI, and they took his information down. They went to his house and visited him, and then they didn't follow up on it, and they didn't do anything else after that. And now 17 kids are dead. So I would say the bulk of the responsibility has to go to the FBI, and outside of the guy, obviously, who shot the kids, but 17 lives probably could have been saved had the FBI done their job and relayed information and tracked this kid down. And it's easy to do with IP addresses and all of this. So it's just inexcusable, Alain, that the chain of command and the lines of communication weren't done the way they should be within the FBI.
Is there going to be talk of mental health reform or gun reform from this as well, or is the whole blame going to go to the FBI?
Well, partially to the FBI. There has to be stricter guidelines on buying guns as well. This kid, with all of his issues, and as I said, with the 39 complaints...
Was it his gun or was it his parents' gun?
Yeah, he went and bought a gun because he's an adult at 19 years old. He never should have been allowed to buy a gun. I mean, there should have been sweeping background checks. There should have been interviews with people who knew him. They should have known about the posting he made on the internet. There should have never been a gun sold to him. So we need much, much stricter guidelines and waiting periods for guns.
And who's responsible for getting that process going? And is the person that should be responsible going to do that? Is that Trump or is that someone else?
Well, that would be Congress and local legislatures, and Congress basically makes rules like that. So I would imagine it's going to be up to them to try to get this, and individual states and localities, of course. And the funny thing, Alain, too, is the three cities with the strictest gun control laws in the United States are Chicago, Washington, D.C., and Baltimore. And they have by far the highest murder rates by percentage. So, criminals are going to get guns whether you make them illegal or not. And I think those statistics prove it.
So then if you're saying the three states with the strictest gun laws are the ones with the highest shooting rates, what do you do? Because that means the laws don't make sense. So how do you combat that?
Well, I think we need much stricter penalties on criminals, much stricter jail sentences, and the big thing is there has to be a much better job of comprehensive background checks and waiting periods. This kid should have never been allowed to have bought a gun with his background of mental instability, background of violence, background of police problems, background of making threats. He should have never been allowed to be able to buy a gun.
And before we move on, is this the incident that you think is going to push a change, or do you think nothing will happen?
Well, I hope so. Again, I hope we have much stricter standards for being able to buy a gun, and hopefully the politicians get together and make this happen. And I know, and the press is saying that there's 18 incidents of mass shootings this year, and that's really not the case, because there was one kid who committed suicide, and they lumped that in together. I think there were a couple of suicides that were lumped in together with gun violence. It's not anywhere near that high.
And the other big one that made it to Australian news was the one in Las Vegas. Was that earlier this year, or was that late last year? The Las Vegas shooting.
That was late last year, if I'm not mistaken, at Mandalay Bay.
Yeah, so that was that was the biggest one in American history. But like that came out of nowhere. But again, that guy had major mental health issues as well.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, Alain, and when I was growing up, I grew up in kind of a rural area, you know, outside of Los Angeles, and there was probably 25, 30 homes in the block, and it was horse country and ranches, and every single person on that block had rifles, guns, automatic rifles, a lot of hunters, a lot of people who shot for sport and went to the target range, and there wasn't one murder or one incident of violence or one problem in 25 years when I was growing up there, because they were responsible gun owners and law-abiding citizens. And, you know, I think this is more of a mental issue and more of a criminality issue than it is gun ownership.
Dave, before we move on, you grew up around ranches and horses. I didn't know you grew up in the 1930s.
I'm a lot older than I sound, huh?
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the Super Bowl. Now, you know I'm not a big knowledge guy when it comes to NFL football. So when I come to America, I want to sit in on your show and I want you to teach me everything you know about NFL. But anyway, Tom Brady, I heard he made a bit of a mistake at the end. Is that something he's going to be remembered for?
No, that really wasn't his fault. He didn't throw an interception or he didn't make a huge mistake. He had a fantastic Super Bowl. He threw for over 500 yards. 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. It was the defense that cost the Patriots the game and let them down. And he dropped back to pass late in the game, and he got blindsided by a defensive lineman who reached his hand in there and knocked the ball away for a fumble, and he never really saw him. So that wasn't his fault. And Brady was fantastic, and at 40 years old, to be the NFL MVP and to play that well in the Super Bowl is remarkable. But the defense is the one who has to take the blame for this.
So was it a good Super Bowl? Were you happy with the result?
Absolutely, 41-33. The teams went up and down. If you like defense, it wasn't a great Super Bowl. But if you like a lot of scoring, if you like a lot of action, it was a fantastic Super Bowl.
So then you're a bit of a sentimental guy in that you're happy the Philadelphia Eagles won it.
I was pulling for the Patriots. I wanted them to win because I'm a big fan of Tom Brady, and I was never really a Patriots fan until last year when the commissioner came up with that ridiculous ruling that suspended Tom Brady for 4 games based on no evidence. That kind of turned me into a Patriots fan. I'm a San Francisco 49ers fan, but I was pulling for the Patriots to win, but all credit to the Eagles. They played a great game, and how about Nick Foles, the backup quarterback, being the MVP of the game and playing so well?
And I know the answer to this question is going to be a no, but did you catch the halftime show?
When I heard it was Justin Timberlake, I made every effort imaginable not to watch. So, no, the answer is no.
Come on. That was one of the best halftime shows I've ever seen, to be honest.
Well, I'll take your word for it, but that ain't my cup of tea, that Justin Timberlake music. So I'll take your word for it.
So do you remember the last halftime show you watched?
A couple of years ago, when it was Bruno Mars and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I loved it because I'm a big fan of Bruno Mars and I love the Chili Peppers. So that one I loved. I watched that one.
Did you watch the one with, was it Bruno Mars, Beyonce, and Chris Martin?
No. If Beyonce is involved, no.
You're very picky, Dave.
Yeah, Beyonce, she's beautiful and sexy and all that, no doubt about it. But I don't like her music, and I'm not watching that. You know, the lip syncing and the dancing and the fake stuff. No, I'm not watching.
Fair enough. Now let's get into something I can talk to you about. I've got a few topics from the NBA. Just picked a few random ones. We'll start with what Doc Rivers doing at the Clippers. He's got rid of Chris Paul. He's trying to get rid of DeAndre Jordan. He's got rid of Blake Griffin. He's trying to get rid of Lou Williams in order to, I heard, get his son some more game time. What's going on at the Clippers? And is Doc Rivers having a mental breakdown?
Well, Lou Williams and DeAndre Jordan are staying because the trade deadline passed last week, and they weren't traded, so they'll be on the Clippers team at least for the rest of this season. Chris Paul made his own decision to leave. He was a free agent for some reason. He didn't want to come back and play for the Clippers, and now the Blake Griffin thing was a surprise. So, but I actually think the Clippers will make out well over the long run here. They got Tobias Harris and Avery Bradley, 2 good players, and a draft pick for Blake, and plus they got rid of the $171 million that they owe Blake over the next 5 years, which is off their books now, and they can go out and compete for free agents this summer. And, you know, the guy who made this deal was Jerry West, who's one of the great general managers, one of the great players of all time in the NBA, and one of the great general managers of all time, now with the Clippers. So, you know, he made the determination that if Blake Griffin is your best player, you can't go far in the playoffs and you can't win a championship. And I agree with him on that. I mean, they're always out early in the playoffs, and Blake doesn't play well in the postseason. So I think it's a good deal for the Clippers, to be honest with you. And it wasn't Doc Rivers making this deal; it was Jerry West.
Has Blake Griffin played a full postseason lately? He always seems to get injured.
Yeah. The last couple of them, he's been hurt. So, yeah, he's been kind of brittle. He's been injury-prone. And then I'm not so sure how well his game translates these days, Alain. You know, in this era of spread courts and three-point shots and up and down and high scoring, his low post game and the way he plays is kind of obsolete these days as far as, you know, bringing teams to a championship level. So, $171 million over 5 years over the summer was an awful lot of money for him. And remember, that was before Jerry West came on board into the front office when that deal was given to him by Doc Rivers.
Do you think he's a good fit at Detroit?
It seems to be so far. You know, he and Andre Drummond are a very good pair down low, and but you know, they're still not anywhere near good enough to make a run in the Eastern Conference playoffs. So, you know, if they do make the playoffs, I would imagine there'll be one series and out. So, you know, it'll kind of the same situation he was in with the Clippers. Probably, if they do make the playoffs, they won't last long.
Yeah, it just seems that him and Kevin Love just don't make it through the postseason for some reason. I don't know why, but they just can't play out the whole postseason.
James Harden's another one. You know, James Harden, as great as he is, and he'll probably win the MVP this year, he disappears in the postseason. For some reason, he doesn't get it done when the games count the most, and he has a real checkered history in the postseason as well.
I want to ask you about the MVP in a few minutes, but there's a couple more topics. Cleveland's new look team, is it common for a player to have so much control as is being talked about LeBron James? Did Michael Jordan have this much control over his team? I know Kobe Bryant had quite a bit of control.
Nobody's ever had this much control with LeBron. He's pretty much the owner, the general manager, and the coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And, you know, Michael Jordan, that's one of the reasons he retired, is that he didn't have the control. He was constantly at war with Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner, and Jerry Krause, the general manager, and they wouldn't kowtow and do everything Michael wanted to do. And Kobe had a little bit of control, but nobody's ever had this kind of sway over a franchise as a player the way LeBron does. But this was a good deal for the Cavaliers. I mean, they got Rodney Hood, they got Larry Nance Jr. and Jordan Clarkson from the Lakers, and they got George Hill. You know, four really good players, and they got rid of six players they didn't want anymore, and they won't miss. So this was an excellent deal. They surrounded LeBron. They're much younger, much more athletic, and much better now than they were before that trade.
So who were the players they got rid of? They got rid of Channing Frye, Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, and a couple of others. Why did that group not work? Why is this second group better?
Yeah, Amon Shumpert, Dwayne Wade were some of the, you know, they were old and they've been there a long time and they weren't good defenders. And the Cavaliers had lost 14 out of 22 before that deal. They were playing the worst defense in the NBA. They got humiliated on national television against the Houston Rockets. So something had to be done. And, you know, a lot of those old guys are kind of set in their ways and they feel entitled and they feel like certain things should be given to them. They don't have to work so hard anymore. So they were cleaned out of there. And Kobe Altman, the young general manager, you got to give him credit. This was an excellent move he did for the franchise. And who knows now? Maybe this gets LeBron to stay. They've made the team better around him, even though he's a free agent this summer. And they have the Brooklyn Nets first-round pick this summer, which could be the first pick in the draft. So maybe this gets LeBron to stay in Cleveland.
Do you think they're going to be running for the championship?
Absolutely, yes. They're clearly the best team in the East now after this deal. So it's looking like them and the Warriors again for a third year in a row.
Are you getting, like, is the end, in your opinion, comparing it to the AFL, I don't know how much you follow the AFL, I know you followed it a little bit, the last couple of seasons have been quite even and it's been unpredictable, especially the teams that win the grand final. Do you feel like the NBA is even?
Oh, no, absolutely not. When the season starts every year, realistically, there's probably 3, maybe 4 teams who have a chance to get to the finals and win the championship, and the rest of them are just playing out the string. So absolutely not. The league is unbalanced and top-heavy, and a vast majority of the teams have no chance to get to the finals.
So when you've got, I mean, there's a lot of money floating around the NBA, but there are, like, budgets, and you can only spend so much. How is the league so uneven?
Well, first of all, you have to get lucky in the draft, which the Cavaliers did when they got LeBron, and they were lucky again when he came back. And they're lucky he's from that area and he likes to live there, because the Cavaliers would be one of these teams. Well, you saw what they were like without LeBron in those years he was in Miami. So that's the Cleveland Cavaliers. If they don't get lucky, you've got to be lucky in the draft and get a franchise type player. Make sure you don't make mistakes, and then maybe sign a free agent or two. And there's certain destination spots, like teams like Milwaukee and Cleveland. If they didn't have LeBron and some of these cold weather cities, free agents don't want to go there. So that's a problem. They're going to pick and choose, and they're going to play with each other, and they're going to form these super teams.
That's the other thing, the super team. What's the new super team? What is it? There's
right.
obviously Golden State.
Yeah.
Would you say Cleveland is a super team? I mean, they've got LeBron, but then they've got a whole lot of players that can score anywhere between 10 and 30 points.
Well, any team that has LeBron is a super team. That's all you need, because he's the best player on the planet, and in my opinion, the MVP and one of the greatest players of all time. Any team he's on has got a chance to win a championship. He's a one-man super team when you have him. But, there's talk. I was in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago, Alain, and they had odds posted on where LeBron's going to play next year, and the Houston Rockets were number one. And if they can somehow pull that off and have Chris Paul, James Harden, and LeBron, that's there's a super team right there to compete and maybe beat the Golden State Warriors.
So you don't think OKC's got a chance?
I don't think so. No. Again, that's not a destination spot. Players don't like to. I don't think they want to live and play in Oklahoma City if they don't have to. So, it's going to be he's going to stay in Cleveland. He's going to come to the Lakers, or he's going to go to Houston, or maybe the Philadelphia 76ers to play with Ben Simmons, because with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and some of those good young players they have there, adding LeBron to that mix, then you got a championship team going.
All right, let's move on a little bit, gradually at a time. Dwayne Wade back in Miami. I think I've asked you this before, but are you a sentimental guy?
I guess a little bit. But in some ways I'm not. When Kobe was 35 years old 3 or 4 years ago, I was telling the Lakers organization, you got to cut him loose, trade him, or you've got to tell him he's got to take a minimum contract if he wants to come back, because he was coming off Achilles surgery. He couldn't play anymore. And the Lakers gave him 2 years and $50 million, and they had a 2-year retirement tour where they were one of the worst teams in the league those 2 years, out of sentimental reasons and to sell tickets. So in that sense, I'm not. I say if the guy's at the end of the line, cut him loose. I don't care who he is.
And that's also the same with Paul Pierce. I think got a 10-day contract with Boston before he retired as well.
Well, and that you talk about a great trade. You want to talk about why the Celtics are in the position they're in right now, one of the best teams in the NBA. They traded Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce when they were old, into their mid to late 30s, to the New Jersey Nets, who were the New Jersey Nets at the time, now the Brooklyn Nets. And they got a boatload of first-round picks. They've had lottery picks every year, and look how quickly they rebuilt with young players. So that's one of the great trades in NBA history. They found a sucker in the Brooklyn Nets to take those two old guys and give up a whole bunch of first-round picks.
All right, so let's move on to, we've just passed the trade deadline. We're going into All-Star Weekend. What are your favorite player moves this season?
Player move as far as trades?
Yeah, as far as trades.
Well, certainly the Cleveland Cavaliers deal with the Lakers. When they give up 6 players, they get 4 back, including 2 Lakers and Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr. Now, me living in L.A., Alain, those are 2 really good young players, and I was sad to see them go as a Lakers fan. But this was a salary cap dump for the Lakers, and they're willing to get a little worse right now and trade 2 good young players away. And now they have enough room this summer to sign 2 maximum free agents, and they're looking at LeBron and Paul George, who is from Los Angeles, who plays for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So that's why you can't really grade this trade. At least at the moment, it's a great trade for the Cavaliers, because they got a lot better, and they can get back to the championship now. But in a year or two, you could be saying the Lakers made a steal here if they sign these free agents. It might turn out to be Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance Jr. for LeBron and Paul George. Now, that's not a bad trade. So if that happens, then the Lakers made a steal.
What about this guy who I'd never really heard of, but has this crazy haircut? His name's Elfrid Payton, and now he plays for the Phoenix Suns, and he just got a triple-double a few days ago. Who is this kid?
He's a really good player, a youngster that came from a small college and was a first-round pick. He's kind of a Rajon Rondo type, excellent passer, good defender. The knock on him is he can't shoot. So if he can improve the outside shooting, he can be an all-star.
And a topic that I want to bring up is, before we get into the Aussies in the NBA, rookies taking over the NBA, there seems to be a lot of star players that have no experience but are becoming stars. You look at Donovan Mitchell, you look at this guy, this giant guy from Chicago, Markkanen or something. You look at
Markkanen?
Yeah, Markkanen.
Yeah.
You look at Ben Simmons. There seems to be like this new wave of rookies and first, second, third year players that are just taking over the NBA that haven't really been heard of before. You look at Clint Capella, one of the best rebounders in the NBA. He's only got 3 years experience. Do you think this whole generation is turning over the old guys?
Yeah, it's a youngsters league now with that one and done rule that college has, where you can go to the NBA after 1 year of college. We got a whole league of 19 and 20-year-olds now, and it's based a lot more on potential now, more than guys who can actually play, with a few exceptions like you just mentioned. So, yeah, definitely, it used to be a late 20s, early 30s league. Now, outside of LeBron, it's a young league now.
Are you happy with that? Who are some of your favorite young guys coming up?
Well, I love Ben Simmons. I mean, I was at Staples Center last night for the Rising Stars game, and that's first and second years players going up against each other. And I love the format, USA against the world, international players against Team USA. And Ben Simmons was awesome last night. But you've seen how far international players have come, Alain. I think they scored 160 points, the internationals, and they blew out the American team. So, and they were 9 different countries represented on that international team. I think the All-Star game should do that, USA against the world. That would be a lot more interesting than the way they do it now.
So how do they do it now? They just have captains and they can pick whoever they want.
Yeah, this is the first year they're doing this. LeBron and Steph Curry were the 2 captains, and they pick teams, like in the old days when you're on the schoolyard, when you pick sides. But the problem was this should have been televised. We should have had cameras on it. We should have had the give and take, the back and forth, and LeBron and Steph determining who they're going to be taking. That would have been fascinating TV. But, because we've got some snowflakes and some spoiled little brats in the NBA and their agents trying to protect them, they were worried about people getting their feelings hurt if they were picked last. So we can't televise this. Come on.
Really?
Yes, that's the reason they didn't televise it. So, if I'm making the last 2 players taken were Al Horford from the Boston Celtics, and who was the other one? Oh, it was LaMarcus Aldridge from the San Antonio Spurs. They both make $25 million a year. They're both among the top 24 players in the world. If that were me, I think I could handle being the last pick. Come on, it's just an all-star game. Come on, man up.
That's got to be a man card violation, right?
Yes, double.
That's double. So is this Australia? Is this USA versus the world game? Is that a new thing?
That was the first year they've done it in the Rising Stars game with the first and second year players. So I love it. The regular All-Star game should be that way. If you want the guys play, because even though they're picking sides this year, they aren't going to play hard and they're going to play defense. They're not going to risk injury. It doesn't really matter who wins. But if it was USA against the world, I think with international pride on the line, I think these guys would play hard and they wouldn't want to lose.
Right. So yeah. And that's the weird thing, that they can now make a full team of decent international players. Could they have done that 10, 15, 20 years ago?
No. If you put the internationals up against Team USA 15, 20 years ago, it would have been a 100-point blowout win for Team USA. It would have been a complete and total mismatch. But credit to the rest of the world how far they've come. Now, you put an NBA team together with the internationals, an all-star team, they can compete quite well with the Team USA guys. So that's how far they have come. And credit to the world, the way they're playing basketball now.
Who would have been the big stars of the international team back 15, 20 years ago? Like Dikembe Mutombo? Who else would have been there?
Yeah, Dirk Nowitzki. Remember Drazen Petrovic, who was a great player from the former Yugoslavia, who was tragically killed in a car accident back, I think, in the mid-'90s. And he was a tremendous international player. And Akeem Olajuwon, of course, from Nigeria, one of the all-time great NBA players. But there are so many more now. And, wow, they could have a stacked team now if you put an international team together. And
now the Olympics is now actually quite interesting when it comes to basketball, and the FIBA World Championships as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No doubt. Why do you think we started allowing NBA players to play in the Olympics for Team USA? In '88, we lost to the Soviet Union, and we were getting spanked, and then we lost in the World Championships in '90, and we were starting to get embarrassed, and we came to the realization now that the world is coming, and we can't keep sending college players and kids over there, or we're never going to win again a gold medal. So the decision was made to start sending our NBA players. And even with NBA players in 2004, we lost and didn't win the gold medal. Remember, Argentina won it that year. So, and how about in the last Olympics in Brazil? We almost lost to Australia. We almost lost to, I think it was Serbia, was it? We had a couple of close calls.
Didn't Spain win the FIBA championships a few years ago?
Spain won the World Championship in 2006, and they beat us. And that's the only loss that Mike Krzyzewski has had coaching Team USA with NBA players. That's the only loss he's had in 12 years.
And you know what's funny? It took a loss to Russia to turn this around. Who was the president back in the 80s when you lost to Russia?
Well, '88, that was the last year of George H.W. Bush, the father, in 1988.
He wouldn't have been happy losing to Russia.
No, wait a minute. That wasn't the last year of him was '92. That's what Bill Clinton won. So yeah, it was George Bush Sr. who was the president then.
Yeah. So all right, let's move on to I know your favorite topic, Aussies in the NBA. Where do you think Andrew Bogut is going to end up? Have you heard anything from him lately?
Oh, that's a good question. He played a little bit with the Lakers this year, and injury prone, and he's getting older now. That's if he's willing to take the NBA veterans' minimum salary, I'm sure there'll be a lot of teams because he can still defend and rebound, and he's an excellent passer. If he's realistic on his salary demands, I think he'll be on an NBA team next year.
Can I just ask, what is the minimum salary?
For somebody his age and his experience, and as long as he's been in the NBA, it's about $6 million a year.
Oh God!
That's the minimum.
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go and cry in my pillow now. Right. Yeah. Okay, he can buy his own private jet with that. He can get everywhere independently. So, do you think have you heard who's looking into him?
No, I haven't. It'll be interesting. I think everybody's going to be looking at free agents this summer, and then the draft, and then filling their roster spots, and then after all that is over, then they'll start looking at guys like Andrew Bogut, who are still out there.
And this is an interesting topic. Who was the last rookie to make an All-Star team? I've read that Grant Hill has been the first person to say that Ben Simmons is whinging a little bit that he didn't get into the All-Star game. Is this a big deal?
I would imagine so. If you're a rookie, it's a tremendous honor to be in the All-Star. I don't know what the statistics are on how many rookies have made it, but yeah, I would imagine that if I were playing, I'd love to make it as a rookie.
But is it the be-all and end-all? Like, is it that big of a deal that Ben Simmons didn't make it? Like, he's got 15, 20 years left of his career. Yeah,
and he's a multi-millionaire, and he's making a huge amount of money, and he's making all kinds of money and endorsements on the side.
Do you think he's whinging?
But I would imagine just for a pride factor and respect among the league, he wished he would have been there. But I don't think he's going to be jumping off the building and committing suicide over not making the All-Star game. I think he'll be just fine.
And there are a few Aussies going around the NBA at the moment. We've got Aaron Baines in Boston, who's playing decently off the bench. We've got Joe Ingles, who is on an absolute scoring charge. He's on a roll. We've got Ben Simmons, obviously. Dellavedova's injured. Exum's injured. We've got a few that are injured. Who have you liked from the Aussies lately?
Dante Exum is a guy I like a lot, and unfortunately, injured the knee his first year, and then while he's recovering from that, hurts the shoulder and out for the year. I hope he can come back 100% because I think he can be an all-star caliber NBA player if he's at full strength. He's my favorite.
And Patty Mills, he was it? Hang on, Greg Popovich. That's the guy. He told Tony Parker that he's not going to be starting anymore. Tony Parker took it on the chin, that's fine, but Patty Mills didn't get the call up to be the starting point guard. What's going on?
That's a good question. It's hard to get into the mind of Pop and try to figure out what he's thinking. Maybe he's sending a message. Maybe maybe he'll be starting Tony Parker come playoff time, trying to get a little bit more out of him. It's Pop doesn't reveal a lot of secrets. A lot of times it's hard to determine exactly what he's thinking. Would
you have thought Patty Mills would get a bit more game time with Tony Parker not starting?
You would think so. Yeah, but again, that's common sense and stuff should happen doesn't equate to the world of Greg Popovich. So maybe that's why he's won five. Maybe that's why he's won 5 championships. He thinks out of the box.
And before we move on to the next topic, which is the Winter Olympics, your awards predictions, and this is interesting. Would you have thought DeMarcus Cousins would be up there for MVP if he didn't tear his ACL?
He would have been in the discussion. He would have been probably top 5. Yeah, 30 and 14 with 5 assists a game and making 3-point shots. Absolutely, he was having
And getting triple doubles.
Yeah, oh my God! I mean, he's. But now we'll see. There's not a good history of guys coming back from Achilles tears, especially guys big 7-footers like him. So we'll see if he gets any max contract. He'll probably get a max contract offer from the Pelicans, but we'll see if anybody steps up this summer.
Was it his Achilles? That's even worse. So just before we move on from the NBA, give me your award predictions. So MVP, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player, and Champion, and Sixth Man if you're interested.
Okay. MVP LeBron. They should just give LeBron the MVP every year before the season starts because there's no question about who the best player is.
Earlier on you said James Harden.
Well, I think James Harden will win the MVP this year, but my vote, LeBron James. LeBron every year. Both ends of the floor, offense, defense. Any coach, any general manager in the NBA, if you lined up every player and said they could have the first pick, would take LeBron hands down. He's the MVP. No question about it.
Champion?
Golden State Warriors, I think, will win the championship again because they have 4 All-Stars and they have, barring injury, certainly the best team in the NBA.
Defensive Player, because there are a lot of big rebounders at the moment, and that might be because there's a lot of shots going up.
Well, I go LeBron again. I think LeBron's the best defender in the NBA as well. He can guard point guards to centers, and LeBron, to me, is the best defensive player in the NBA.
So is Defensive Player based more on blocks or more on rebounds?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know exactly. It's not really based on anything. It's who you think the best defender is. I think it's more of an individual opinion. So, to me, my vote goes to LeBron because LeBron defensively, like I said, he can guard every position on the floor. He's the best I've ever seen at those chase down blocks, and to me, he gets it.
Okay, Rookie of the Year, is that as easy as it sounds?
Well, it's Ben Simmons and Donovan Mitchell are running neck and neck right now. I go Ben Simmons because 6'10" point guard, and the 76ers will probably make the playoffs, and the Utah Jazz probably will not. So, as good as Donovan Mitchell has been, and he's a great story being a low draft pick, I go Ben Simmons.
And Sixth Man of the Year. Do people still rate the Sixth Man of the Year as an important award?
Not the way it used to be. That's a good question. Certainly, I would say Lou Williams of the Clippers, although he did start for a little while this year, but for the most part, he's been a sixth man, so averaging close to 25 points a game, I go Lou Williams.
All right, let's move on to the Winter Olympics, and this is interesting. For some reason, even though there's a lot of media coverage, I don't feel Australia appreciates or follows the Winter Olympics as much because we don't have easy access to snow and snow sports unless you drive up to the mountains. It's not like it snows in the middle of the city. Does America follow the Winter Olympics more than that?
The Winter Olympics are not a big topic of conversation here. That is way, way down on the totem pole when it comes to interest in sports. It gets pretty good ratings because, you get a lot of non-sports fans who love the Winter Olympics, especially women who love the figure skating and who love some of the winter sports, and especially the figure skating, which gets the best ratings. So, as far as hardcore sports fans go, no, there aren't a lot of people watching it, but they get blockbuster ratings because the Winter Olympics, unlike other sports, you get the non-sports fan watching in big numbers, so that's why they get good ratings.
Why do you think that is? Do you think they prefer the non-sports fans prefer the Winter Olympics over the Summer Olympics, or it's just any big international sports event?
I would say the non-sports fans probably like the Winter Olympics better because of the figure skating. That is far and away the highest-rated sport, and you get the women in bunches, in droves, who don't normally watch sports, who for some reason love figure skating. Maybe it's the artistic element, maybe it's the dance, maybe for whatever reason, women drive the figure skating ratings. And I think Winter Olympics get more non-sports fan than the Summer Olympics because, the summer, a lot of men, we love the basketball, we love the track and field, we love a lot of the elements of the Summer Olympics, and especially, Alain, a guy like me who grew up in Southern California, I don't have a lot of interest in the Winter Olympics. We don't usually grow up skiing or ice skating or speed skating or curling or figure skating or any of that stuff.
All right, let's move on to tennis. So, obviously, Roger Federer's... Did you get to see much of the Australian Open?
I did.
So what's your take on Roger Federer? Is he up there with greatest athletes of all time?
Oh, absolutely. He's the greatest tennis player of all time. I think we can say that without question now. And absolutely, you can make a case right now that he's the greatest athlete in the world. What he's done the last year or two, especially at 36 years old, and he did a very, very smart thing, Alain. Remember, guys, just a couple of years ago, people thought he was done. He was losing to Djokovic. He was losing to Nadal. He was losing to Andy Murray. It looked like AIDS was catching up with him. But then, he decided to start playing less. He decided to play a lot less tennis, taking breaks, and he pretty much only plays the majors now. And now he's refreshed, and it looks like he has new life.
Yeah, so he took 6 months off at the end of last year and didn't play the US Open. He may or may not play the French Open this year, but he's not usually, if Nadal's playing, he's not likely to win the French Open. So he prefers obviously Australia and Wimbledon, and that's all he needs to play. He's number one now, so he's not going to lose. He's not going to go down. So he's always going to get easy access into the big tournament, into the Grand Slam. So he's got it made.
Absolutely, and playing a lot less tennis has been the key. And I've always thought a lot of these athletes, for some reason, train too hard and train too much in the off season. So I think rest is a very underrated element of longevity and staying fresh and keeping your body right.
And men's tennis is very kind of one-sided at the moment with the big 3 or 4, and then there's a couple of young guys coming up. But I'm very interested in women's tennis at the moment. Serena Williams hasn't come back from having a baby just yet. Sharapova may not make it back up the rankings, and Azarenka hasn't quite come back from maternity leave either. And that gave Caroline Wozniacki the chance to win a Grand Slam, and Simona Halep got very close as well. Do you follow women's tennis as much? Are you going to take more interest in it now that it's a bit more even and a bit more spread out?
Oh, yeah, I love women's tennis. And, absolutely. I take a lot more interest, especially in the Australian, when good to see Caroline Wozniacki coming through and winning her first major championship, and probably some of that had to do with Serena not playing, but hopefully we get a little more depth on the women's side.
Do you think Serena and Azarenka will be able to make it back up the rankings?
Serena, what is she now, 34, 35?
Yeah, something like that.
But she's she's just a super athlete, a freak of nature, one of a kind. I wouldn't put anything past her. I would imagine she still has a couple of majors left in her.
Let's move away from sport now for the last few topics. The Me Too movement, how far can it go? And the interesting thing about this for me is there's a lot of people coming out saying that they got touched or groped or flashed 20, 30 years ago. But back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, maybe even 90s, it was a thing that female actors slept around to make their way up the pecking order. Where do you draw the line with this Me Too movement?
Well, that's a tough question, and this goes back 100 years in Hollywood, in the film industry. Back when Hollywood first got started in the teens and 20s, that was the only way for a woman to make it, to sleep her way to the top. Hopefully, that's done, and that's a thing of the past now. And I do feel sorry, and I'm sure not every man is guilty of this who's being accused of things 20, 30, and 40 years ago. So hopefully the ones who actually aren't guilty can get through this and can prove their case. And I'm just glad I'm not rich and famous, Alain.
Oh, God, Dave.
I really am, because you could, back in the day, years and years and years ago, you'd go to a dance club or you'd meet some girls or, and you'd go out and have some fun, have a few drinks, and then 30 years later, somebody comes up and says you touched their rear end or touched them inappropriately, and you don't even remember them, and all of a sudden you find yourself in trouble and lawsuits, and boy, it's a tough time right now.
Is it something you can come back from?
I just think there's so many of them now. Maybe we're getting a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe it's not as much of a shock anymore, because it seems like every day there's a new celebrity getting accused of this. And
Kevin Spacey, Jeremy Piven, Weinstein. You've got
Scott Baio.
Yeah, you've got James Franco.
Yep, Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby was the original.
Yeah,
Steven Seagal.
It used to be if it was rape or attempted rape or a violent sexual assault was one thing, but maybe inappropriate touching is something you can get past. But Now it just seems to be, and rightfully so, any kind of inappropriate sexual activity you're going to get called out on. And if you are innocent, it's tough to prove that you didn't do something 30 years ago. If you're being accused of it,
Exactly.
your name's out there, and you're assumed guilty. And if you didn't do it, you're in a tough spot.
So is this a movement you're following closely, or you're kind of getting over it by now?
It's in the news every day, and you follow it, and it's just it's hard to study every single case and accusation now because the new one's breaking every day. It's unbelievable.
Next topic I've got is Kanye versus The Rock for the next president. It could also be Oprah. Who's what's happening in these presidential elections? We've got 3 years left of Trump. Who's going to be next? Is he going to get a second term?
I think so. Yeah, I think Donald Trump's going to get reelected in 2020. I know, if you read the mainstream news media every day, you think he's going to get impeached, and you think he's the worst guy I know, some popular president of all time. But he's gone from about 35% to about 50% in the polls and in approval ratings lately. The economy is booming. It's the best it's been in 15 or 20 years. Black and Hispanic and women's unemployment rates are the lowest they've been in American history right now. Unemployment rates are unbelievably low. The stock market is booming. The economy is good. Businesses are, coming back and not moving overseas anymore. So I think as long as the economy stays strong, I think he has a good chance to get reelected in 2020. Now, who he runs against, now that's going to be the interesting question.
It could be Tiger Woods.
Is it going to be Oprah? Is it going to be Oprah or Tiger Woods or Bill Cosby or,
Oh God.
or Dave Smith or who knows?
Yeah, have you got funding, Dave? Have you got enough funding?
I don't. I had to set up a GoFundMe page, and then everybody in America and Australia can start sending me money.
Oh, wouldn't that be brilliant? What would be your first move as president?
Let's see. Wow, my first move as president. Well, that's a good. First thing I would do was eliminate the income tax in America. I think that's one way you want to help people keep money in their pockets. That's what I would do. Everybody takes home 100% of their paycheck every 2 weeks. I think for that alone, I'd get elected.
Oh, can you become prime minister as well?
Yes.
Yep.
And then after I do my 2 terms, I'll move to Australia and start running.
Yep.
I'll start running Australia after that.
You could hold the record for being the leader in most countries. That'll be good. Next, you can take over Zimbabwe, North Korea, Russia.
Yeah, who knows? If I live long enough, maybe I can be ruler of the world. They can just make me president of the entire world.
Let's move on to the in memoriam section, and we haven't talked for quite a while, but I've picked out 3. The first one is John Mahoney from Frasier. Did you ever watch Frasier?
Oh my God, yes! I used to love Frasier. I used to watch it all the time. That was too bad to see. He was a very good actor, and I loved that show, Frasier. And he seemed to be a very generous and down-to-earth guy. He never moved out of Chicago. He never moved out of the neighborhood he was originally from, and he grew up in the suburbs there, and he lived there his whole life, and he never really went Hollywood or let anything get to his head, and seemed like a real normal guy.
And Frasier was one of those shows that all the actors were still alive. There aren't many of those shows anymore now, apart from maybe Friends. There aren't many of those shows from when I grew up that still have their full cast. And, maybe The Nanny. That's probably about it.
Well, it ended in 2004, not too long ago. It's only been about 13 or 14 years. So, and they were relatively young doing that. So it's not surprising most of them are still alive. And John Mahoney was younger than people thought. He was only about 12 or 13 years older than Kelsey Grammer.
He was like 75, 76 or 77 or something.
Yeah, which means he was maybe in his mid to late 50s when the show started, and he looked a lot older back when Frasier started.
That's Hollywood, and that's what a cane will do to you, Dave.
And a good toupee.
Yeah, exactly. The next one is Tom Petty. I picture you as a bit of a Tom Petty fan.
Oh, yeah, love it. Oh, my God. I was a big fan of Tom Petty. I'm a guitar player from way back and played in bands back in the day, and we used to play Tom Petty covers. So, yeah, he was a big influence on me. I loved his music.
When was the last time you saw him live?
Oh, God, maybe 20 years ago.
In L.A.?
Yeah, in L.A.
Staples Center?
No, I saw him at the, where did I see him? I saw him at the Irvine Meadows Amphitheater, which is down about halfway between L.A. and San Diego. It's a beautiful spot. It's an outdoor concert venue, and summer nights there, seeing concerts are really, really a treat. I used to love going there.
And the other one I've got is a guy that played basketball in LA, Rajal Butler, and his wife died in a tragic car accident. Do you get a bit emotional when you hear that young NBA players or past NBA players have died tragically, and even ones that have played in LA?
That was in my neighborhood, in Studio City, out here in the San Fernando Valley. That was close to where I live, where that happened. It was, early morning, late night, whatever you want to call it, and he was flipped his car hitting a curb on Ventura Boulevard and flipped it into a parking lot, and unfortunately, both he and his wife passed away. But Alain, they said he was going 90 miles an hour when he got into the accident and his car flipped. I mean, anybody who's familiar with LA and Ventura Boulevard in that Studio City area, that's not a freeway. That's a regular street with stoplights. It's about a 35 mile an hour speed limit there.
Oh.
And to be going 90 on a residential street with stoplights, you have to wonder, what the heck was he thinking? Was he drag racing? Was he trying to prove something? Doing 90 on Ventura Boulevard, that's one of the dumbest things you could possibly. That's almost a suicide mission when you're doing that.
Right. Do you remember much of him as a player?
Absolutely. He played for the Clippers for 2 or 3 years out here a while back, and very good basketball player.
And is there anyone, before we go on to the last couple of questions, is there anyone you want to bring up in the in memoriam section?
Am I forgetting anybody? I don't know. Those are about it. I'm probably forgetting somebody, but I can't think of anyone else.
All right, so the next topic is, Dave, Will Smith is on Instagram now. Why aren't you?
I'm not on Instagram, and I've never been on Facebook either.
Why aren't you on Instagram yet?
I've got to get up to speed. That I need to be. It's funny. My daughter is a senior in high school this year. She's graduating in June, and then in the yearbook, do you have high school yearbooks in Australia?
Yeah. We have a yearbook at the end of Year 12.
Right. So, and then the parents can all buy dedication pages for their kids. We
don't have that. We just get all our classmates to sign it.
Right, and we do that too. But for seniors, we have dedication pages. So, I paid $200 for an entire page, in the yearbook, and then you make a dedication like "I love you, I'm proud of you," and you put baby pictures, make a little collage, and then you put pictures of when she was grown up, in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and maybe some of her interests. And parents all buy pages and do dedications to their kids in the back of the yearbook. So they said, okay, just to do this, create the page, do the artwork, scan all the pictures, and send them together. And I said, what? What? What are you talking about? I didn't know how to scan pictures onto the page and send them to school. I didn't know how to do the artwork and do those. So I just hired a guy to do it for me. So I said, I got to get up to speed here.
You have a 17 or 18-year-old daughter. Why are you hiring somebody?
Well, but she can't do it because the dedication page is a surprise.
Right.
To see what's on. Yeah.
Right. So is there any chance of you getting on Instagram and sharing some of your great photos from back in the day, back in the 80s and 90s? I would love to see them.
Are you sure you want to see that?
Well,
wow. With my mullet haircut and the tight jeans and
absolutely.
Oh my God.
And your guitar in one hand, a beer in the other.
Yes. Oh, that was it. Back in the day. And then if I could ever find my high school graduation picture, we had the we had the prom night, and we have something called grad night, where there's a big dance right before you graduate from high school.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a picture out there. I think it's in my mom and dad's attic. I got to find that and post it one day. Somebody took a picture of me. I was wearing a lime green leisure suit that night. So how about that, huh?
Oh.
And platform shoes and an oversized bow tie.
Oh my God! And a mullet. Wow.
No.
Oh.
I didn't have the mullet. I had like the shoulder-length long hair parted in the middle, which was the thing back then. So, but a lime green leisure suit. How about that?
That would be brilliant. Did you have a good old classic Magic Johnson jersey as well?
No doubt about it. I did. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Who else was in your jersey collection?
I never had too many jerseys. I had a Magic one, and then I had a Reggie Jackson one from the Angels back in the 80s too. Those are about the only. I was never big for wearing jerseys around.
Right.
Because you know what's funny.
Did you have the arms for it?
Oh yes, absolutely. Back in the day. But
yeah.
My dad one time I was wearing a jersey, and he walked up to me and he said, "Let me ask you a question. Why would you wear a shirt with another man's name on the back? Why?" And I said, "Because I'm a fan." He said, "That is the stupidest. It makes you look like such a loser. Take that off."
Oh, jeez. That's a bit rough.
Yeah, it was. He said, I just don't understand why one man would wear another man's name on the back of a jersey. It's just, I don't understand. He didn't get it.
And finally, give me a couple of recent man card violations.
Oh, my goodness. Well, my one is definitely going to my good friend Dave Denholm. He does my updates for my Saturday and Sunday night show. So, and I'm on, of course, what time is it? Oh, my God, I'm on in about 90 minutes on the air. So tonight and tomorrow, he does the updates on my show. He's getting one because he admitted on the air that he watches the figure skating in the Olympics. So he definitely gets one. That's a definite man card violation. Justin Trudeau, who is the Prime Minister of Canada.
Yeah.
He's getting one because a reporter asked him a question, and in the question, he said, "Mr. Prime Minister, is this like the worst thing that's happened in all of mankind?" And then Trudeau corrected him and said, "No, we don't say that. We say person kind, not mankind." And I said, "Oh my God, you've got to be."
Brilliant.
Have we gotten that politically correct? We can't even use the word mankind anymore. Get out of here.
Are you gonna pick on the three groups of people that watch the Super Bowl? The people that watch it for the match, the people that watch it for the ads, and the people that watch it for the halftime show?
Oh, definitely, absolutely. And it's funny, and you don't want to stereotype or generalize, but I just find this to be the case that whenever I go to a big Super Bowl party, like, the men are in there, like if there's a big house full of people, the men are in there all watching the Super Bowl, and the girls are hanging out in the kitchen or they're outside talking or socializing. And then as soon as halftime comes up, like all the men kind of filter out, and they head into the kitchen, they head into the backyard and start chatting, and all the women filter in, and then they're in front of the television set watching the halftime show and the music and the entertainment. And then when the game starts again, it's just and nobody says anything. It's just kind of like genetically, it just happens. And then once the game starts again in the second half, the women all filter out of the room, and the men want to come back in and watch. It's just amazing sociological phenomenon there.
It's the best 13 minutes of winter for the ladies.
Yeah, and and there are exceptions. I do know ladies who absolutely love football and watch the entire game, but generally, the men seem to love it a lot more than the women do.
All right, Dave, it's been good. Good luck for your show. Enjoy All-Star Weekend. As always, you can find Dave at Dave Sports God on Twitter, and one day on Instagram we'll get some of his old school pictures up on there, hopefully. And have a great night. Have a good week, and I will talk to you again soon.
6 to 10 p.m. Pacific time, Saturdays and Sundays in America. So that's when you can hear the show on NBC Sports Radio.
So that would be about 1 p.m. Melbourne time, would be 6 p.m. in LA. 1 p.m. Melbourne time, Monday.
17 hours ahead, right? Is that how it works?
I'm not sure about the hours. I just know we go forward 5 hours and back 24.
I think it'll be 1 in the morning. 1 in the afternoon? Is that how? I don't know.
Yeah, one in the afternoon. So are you on now, and then are you on tomorrow as well?
So I'd be on like 1 in the afternoon till 5 in the afternoon, Sunday and Monday, I guess, Australian time.
Sunday and Monday in Melbourne time. Yep, that's right.
Right. Okay, good.
Awesome.
You got it figured out.
Yep, definitely. Oh, absolutely. I've had it figured out for years, Dave, since I first tweeted you. Good luck. Have a good night. Enjoy All-Star Weekend, and I'll talk to you again soon.
All right, anytime. Thanks, Alain.
Thanks, Dave.